All right. Good afternoon, everyone. In today's discussions about climate change and how we treat animals, there is growing interest in understanding when and how people feel a moral connection with nature. Studies have shown that humans do care about the well-being of plants and animals, even when there is no direct benefits to us. But there is still a lot we don't know, like what factors influence this moral reasoning and why people might care more about certain species. Our symposium aims to explore two main questions. What are some of the factors that shapes individual moral reasoning about non-human natural entities? And two, do these factors similarly impact the reasoning of individuals across different age groups, including children, teenagers, and adults? Our talks will provide insights into answers to these questions. So I will start with the first talk, and just let me set up here the slides. All right, yeah. So I will introduce myself as I didn't do it before. I am Lizette Pisa. I am a PhD student, just completing the PhD with Kelemen at Boston University. And today I want to talk about how different kinds of agency attributions to nature impact environmental moral reasoning. Sorry. All right, so in our daily lives, we often attribute agency to animals, to our pets, plants, and non-living natural entities. And not only we attribute agency to these natural entities, but also media depictions often portray natural elements as having minds and complex emotions. So given the significance of agency in our lives, an important question arises. How do these attributions of agency impact our moral reasoning about environmental harm? And so I'm going to start telling you about some of what prior research has said in this regard. So, so far we know that children and adults view harm in nature as morally wrong. For instance, they tend to say that throwing garbage into the ocean is wrong. And it also has been shown that when they are asked to explain their judgments, they offer two kinds of justifications. So one kind is homocentric justifications that are also known as anthropocentric, and these are related to humans' welfare and their rights. So for instance, a homocentric justification would be focused on how throwing garbage into the ocean will prevent humans from using the water or enjoying it. The other kind of justification is biocentric, which is related to non-human natural entities' welfare and their intrinsic value. So this kind of justification might mention that the trash in the ocean will harm fish or that it will prevent other animals from finding healthy food in the ocean. So although these two kinds of justifications can be used when seeing environmental harm as morally wrong, prior research has shown that biocentric reasoning is related to pro-environmental behaviors. It predicts it. So from our view, biocentrism is beneficial, and therefore my research is trying to find ways to promote it. However, what we don't know is how different kinds of agency attributions might enhance this kind of reasoning. And so what do I mean when I talk about different kinds of agency attributions? Well, we know that humans employ different explanatory frameworks when they try to understand the natural world. So for example, when explaining why the Earth moves around the sun, someone might adopt a vitalist framework and say that the Earth needs sunlight and therefore it moves around the sun. And this is a vitalist explanation because it represents the Earth as an animal with survival needs, drives, and non-intentional goals. Alternatively, someone might adopt a mentalistic framework and say that the Earth moves this way because it knows the sun is useful and it will make it happy. So this explanation is mentalistic because it represents the Earth as a person operating based on thoughts and emotions. All right, so because I'm gonna keep talking about vitalistic and mentalistic agency to help with understanding our study design. In the rest of my talk, I'll use the term vitalist agency interchangeably with the idea of treating something as an animal, and I'll use the term mentalistic agency interchangeably with the idea of treating something as a person. This is just to make it easy to understand. So let me turn now to what we know from prior research about how attributing these two kinds of agency to nature relates to moral concern and biocentrism. So far, we know from correlational research with adults that attributions of mentalistic agency are associated with affording nature with moral status, and also with greater pro-environmental behaviors. But none of this work establishes causal relationships because it's just correlational. And also, to our knowledge, no work has been done to isolate the causal effect of vitalist agency on moral concern as compared to mentalistic agency. And so these gaps in the literature lead me to our specific research questions. Okay, so our questions are, does inducing any kind of agency to nature increase participants' moral concern about harming nature under biocentric reasoning? We specifically choose to look at the effect of attributing agency to the earth because this is the biggest natural thing, and also it encompasses all the other living things. We also explore whether inducing mentalistic agency to the earth has different effects on moral concern than inducing vitalistic agency. So let me describe the experiment we used to answer these two questions. All right, so first of all, we want to look at this developmentally, and therefore, in study 1, our participants were adults, and in study 2, our participants were 6- and 7-year-old children, because at that age, prior research has said that they already differentiate between vitalist and mentalistic agency. So we used a between subjects design, which had two main phases. During the first phase, we induced participants to attribute agency to the earth, and in the second phase, we measured their moral concern and biocentrism. So let me tell you more about the first phase. We used a video about the history of the earth to induce participants to view the earth as either an agent or a non-agent. And so participants were randomly assigned to one of three conditions. In the object history condition, the earth was described as a physical mechanical object, and therefore this was our control condition because we described the earth as not being an agent. And in terms of the agentic conditions, the animal condition described the earth as an animal with biological capacities and non-intentional survival goals, like receiving light and growing. And the person condition described the earth with the pronoun she and attributed to her mental capacities and emotions. All right. So importantly, the visuals of the video were the same across the three conditions. The only difference was in the narration that accompanied those visuals. And also, we included scientifically accurate pictures of the earth in all the videos. So to give you an idea of how the videos look, I will show you an excerpt of the animal condition video. Okay. So this is the part in which the narrator tells how the meteors hit the earth a long time ago. So hopefully the sound works. Yeah.
For example, look here. Over many years, huge rocks, known as meteors, kept smashing into the earth. Many of them banged into the earth so hard that they cut and wounded its outside and ended up inside its body, making it feel ill. The meteors had little bits of stuff on them that mixed with the inside of the earth's body, so that the earth began to make water, which it needed to grow and heal.
All right, so remember the visuals of all the videos were the same, and this was the animal condition. After seeing the video, participants were asked to recall it, and we coded the number of facts about the history of the earth that they remember, and we also coded how they spontaneously described the earth in their recall, whether they showed a non-agentic construal of the earth or an agentic construal of it. And in that case, we distinguished whether their recall showed them talking about the Earth as an animal or whether it showed them talking about the Earth as a person. After we had checked participants' recall, the second phase started. To measure participants' environmental moral concern, we asked them to evaluate 4 environmental harm scenarios about logging, water pollution, air pollution, and waste management. And we calculated an average score from okay to very, very wrong across the 4 situations. This is an example of the situation about waste management. In this one, we told participants that Mandy, who was sailing across the ocean, decided to throw her own trash on an uninhabited island that already had trash on it. For each situation, after asking their judgment, we asked participants why and to get their explanation of their judgment, and we coded the presence of biocentric justifications in their explanation. So those were the methods, and now I'm going to tell you more about the results we found. So first, I'm going to show you that we were able to induce participants to attribute agency to the Earth as indicated by their free recall of the video. We found that the condition participants were assigned significantly predicted the kind of agentic construal that they showed. As you can see, for both children and adults in the control object condition, they did not tend to share to have an agentic construal of the Earth, while the opposite happened for those in the agentic conditions. They were showing an agentic construal. So now let me turn to our first question. Does inducing any kind of agency increases environmental concern? And so first, in general, and sadly, adults do not tend to be morally concerned about the environment that much. So as you can see in the graph, for the adults in the object condition, the mean concern was closer to okay than to very, very wrong. However, was this affected by the video condition, which is our question? The answer is yes. Adults assigned to the agentic conditions show greater environmental moral concern than those assigned to the object condition. So agency attribution does matter. And interestingly, in terms of our second research question, comparing vitalistic and mentalistic agency, we found no differences between the person and the animal condition. So this is showing that the specific kind of agency does not matter to adults. In the case of adults' tendency to engage in spontaneous biocentric justifications, which, as you might recall, are focused on non-humans' welfare, we found similar patterns. Adults in the agentic conditions show greater environmental moral concern and greater levels of biocentric reasoning than those in the object condition. Also, there were no differences between the person and the animal condition. Okay, so now let me show you what we found with children, which is the most exciting part. First, relative to adults, young children are very concerned about the environment. So as you can see, their average concern at baseline in the object condition was closer to very, very wrong. And in terms of our first question, we did not find differences by condition. However, we found differences by agentic construal, which was the construal of the Earth that they showed in the recall of the video. So specifically, children who were successfully induced to attribute agency to the Earth showed greater environmental moral concern than children with a non-agentic construal. And also, in relation to the second question, we found no differences between children who construe the Earth as an animal and children who construe the Earth as a person. So this means that having an agentic construal helped, no matter what kind. The results for biocentric reasoning were very similar, and so we found that children with an agentic construal gave more biocentric justifications than those with a non-agentic construal, and no difference were found between the animal and person agentic construal. After seeing these results, we started to wonder, how did inducing children to have an agentic construal have these moral effects? And so we conducted a mediation analysis that revealed very interesting results that I'm just going to show now. So as you can see in the figure, when children construe the Earth as an agent, animal or person, their free recall showed that they remember more facts about the history of the Earth. And this greater learning about the Earth's history then led to harsher moral judgments of environmental harm. So in sum, what this is showing is that having an agentic construal helps children to learn more about the Earth's history, and in that way, increases their tendencies to be concerned about environmental harm. And the same mechanism also explains biocentric reasoning and biocentric justifications in children. All right, so in conclusion, in this study, we explored whether encouraging participants to attribute agency to nature, specifically to the Earth, increased moral concern and biocentric reasoning. Our findings reveal main things. First, both children and adults can be induced to attribute agency to the Earth, viewing it either vitalistically as an animal or mentalistically as a person. Attributions of agency significantly predicted environmental moral concern and greater biocentric justifications, which has been associated with pro-environmental behaviors in past literature. Also, different agentic representations, animal or person, didn't lead to different outcomes. So this means that vitalist representations are equally effective or impactful as mentalistic ones. And this is important as vitalist is closer to scientifically accurate views of the Earth's ecosystems. Notably, we also got clues to how agentic representations have effects in children. Children who construe the Earth as an agent learn more about its history, leading to higher concern and increased biocentric reasoning. And finally, these findings illuminate our understandings of how different kinds of agentic representations impact moral reasoning. And they also shed light on the importance of incorporating Earth's history into environmental education for children. And just because of the time, I just want to thank you so much for watching my presentation, and thank you for my participants and RAs who make this research possible. Thank you so much. I think we still have like 2 minutes for questions. So. Are there any questions in the audience? Yeah.
Beautiful presentation, thank you. I wonder if you, oh, sorry. It was a beautiful presentation, thank you. I wonder if you have any thoughts about how these results might look, or how results of these kinds of questions might look if you looked at individuals who were not raised in urban North America. So for example, the indigenous children and adults that many people fortunately have begun to study. How do you see these results as related to those findings? Was that a clear enough question?
Yeah, that was really clear. And thank you so much for asking, because I'm actually very interested in conducting research with other populations like rural children and indigenous children. And my hypothesis is that because they are in more contact with nature, and like maybe vitalist agency is a more common way to see nature than mentalistic agency sometimes. I would assume they will show similar results, but be very impacted by vitalist agency. It's actually kind of tricky, because you can see in our media depictions there is lots of anthropomorphization of nature, and animals are always shown with clothes and going to school, or like completely anthropomorphized and attributed mentalistic agency, while I know from prior research that for indigenous literature to children, that's not necessarily the case, and there are different depictions of nature for them. But I still think it will be similar, the effect of agency, no matter what kind. The vitalist agency will still have an effect for them and will make them be more concerned about nature. So yeah, thank you so much for the question. All right, is there another question there?
Yeah, hello, oh Jesus. So thank you very much for your talk. It was really wonderful. And I was just wondering if you took any measurements of children's nature connectedness and their baseline level of environmental education, because I think there is a bit of a relationship between environmental education and environmental concerns, so the levels, and the same with nature connectedness, which can be measured fairly briefly.
Was the question if we measure nature connectedness in the children that we interviewed? Or, yeah? We didn't measure that. I think it's an important question. It's a covariate that we might consider in future research. We have research like trying to test whether children consider humans as part of nature. And yeah, that's something I can talk maybe later. But yeah, in the future, I'll probably try to include some of nature connectedness. All right, so I think because of the interest of time, we're gonna go with the next.